Oh man, it's Friday night. Chiefs play, if I'm doing my math right, in about 16 hours. I'm jacked up for that final preseason game. 12 days and a wake up from the regular season to start the dynasty, or to continue the dynasty, I should say. Man, I got Keys in the house here. Gooch is busy opening up a cocaine dealership, so he's going to be in and out depending on the schedule, man. Keys, what's up, brother?
Hey, first off, everybody knows that's a lie because you would be the one holding the scissors to cut the ribbon at the ceremony. So, yeah. Hey, thanks for having us on here, Dan.
Oh man, I'm pretty excited. BLC 0310, what's up, guys? I'm assuming what's up, guys, man. Hey, the dynasty is still here. It's still going. I'm excited. Man, just a few days. Can I say just a few days before Chiefs Lions? I'm so pumped up for this game. We're going to talk a lot about one of the biggest stories in the NFL preseason about Chiefs and Chris Jones, but something happened about half an hour ago, which really kind of floored, and I wouldn't, maybe floored's a little strong of a word here, but about half an hour ago, Trey Lance was traded to the Dallas Cowboys for a 4th round pick. And I thought I'd kind of get, look, we're Chiefs fans, so we don't really have a dog in the fight. So I thought it'd be kind of interesting. Yeah, Funk. Yeah, Lance to Dallas. I just want to fire that out because it happened about a half an hour ago. Keys, what are your thoughts on Trey Lance, the former number 3 overall pick? 49ers gave up 3 number 1s to Miami. Part of that was they used as trade capital to get Tyreek Hill. So it kind of helps Kansas City out in a weird way. Now you get rid of him. Was it 2 years later, 3 years later? Drawing a blank on when he was there. It's either 2 or 3 years. 3, yeah, less than 3 years. To Dallas for a 4th round pick. So, man, what are your thoughts on this, man?
Yeah, I mean, first off, you broke this news to me a half an hour ago. I was playing Texas Chainsaw Massacre online and slaughtering people, but
that sounds like fun. I've never played that. That sounds like fun.
I think it just came out like not too long ago, but it's based on the original movie. So, yeah, I'm not a big online game person, and I didn't know it was only online, but I'm warming up to it. But
okay, so yeah. I'm showing my age a little bit. Is it at all like Doom? Do you remember Doom? Did you ever play Doom?
I didn't get into it, but yeah, it was popular during that time. In a way, it's kind of like there was a Friday the 13th game that came out a few years ago where you have a choice to either be Jason Voorhees and hunt down people, or you can be a camper who's hiding. Yeah. So this is kind of similar, but I think it's probably more done. So
I've never heard of it, but I'm not big into video games anymore, but actually it sounds like a lot of fun.
Well, Texas Chainsaw Massacre is better because, with Jason Voorhees, you're one person, right? So you're either him or you're a camper. But in this game, you can be, I think up to like 4 people. So you can have all 4 members of the family, right? You can pick and choose which ones.
I'm halfway tempted to download that game after the show, and like we can go kill some people. Like, am I allowed to say that on YouTube? We may get banned for this. It actually sounds like a lot of fun. But
yeah, so it's
games in
it's teams of 4. So online people, which again I'm not big on, but teams of 4. It's the family versus people trying to escape, and so yeah, pretty cool. But that's not what we're here to talk about.
No. We got sidetracked pretty quick,
Sorry about that.
That's on me. On me. I got an energy drink. I'm jacked up. I'm all over the place. Lance is a cowboy. Man, since we don't have a dog in the fight, man, I just kind of wanted to get your thoughts about it.
Yeah, I mean, this is really interesting to me. It's going to take me a while to process this one because I don't think that, to me, Lance is someone that, you see as a project, so I understand that part of it. But, I mean, is Dallas just planning on, like, another year or 2 out of Dak? Like, what's the – or or are they planning on trying to flip him again at, at some point? Like, I'm kind of intrigued, and I'm processing off the top of my head here because you literally just told me about this trade like 30 seconds before we came on. So
I literally just found out minutes ago, and I don't like doing this, but since it's a big name, it's two, big teams in the NFL, two playoff teams. We don't have a dog in the fight, so I kind of thought, but so it's kind of interesting because Sam Darnold locked down the number 2 spot in San Francisco, and I had a huge man crush on Sam Darnold coming out of USC, and I just thought he was in a bad situation with the Jets. And then I thought he was in a bad situation in Carolina. And I'll be honest with you, I think if it was all equal, I think Darnold would actually start in San Francisco, but they're going to go with Purdy. I didn't believe that when, at the end of the season, I was like, Purdy's going to go back to the bench. They're going to start Lance. And my boy Tim chimes in, Trey Lance is trash. 49ers so dumb drafting a dude anyway. Hi, I'm Trey Lance. I played like 13 games at North Dakota and the 3rd pick in the draft. Stupid. LOL. It's actually, I think it's a great move for Dallas. I was looking at their depth chart, and I didn't realize that they had Will Grier. A lot of you may not remember him, but he was a guy I really liked out of West Virginia. He's probably not going to make the team now. Cooper Rush played pretty well. I think it's a great move for the Cowboys, to be honest with you, because it's a 4th round pick. I mean, who cares? Worst case scenario. Remember, Dak got hurt 6 games last year, and they put in Cooper Rush. They went 5-1, and so you get guys with lots of upside, no expectations. And with San Francisco, it's a team that just looks like they're just dumped a lot of draft capital for nothing.
Right.
So let's dive into the main thing that we're going to talk about, and we're going to talk about the Chris Jones situation. And for those of you who aren't familiar, let me kind of dive into kind of a recap. It was around November or December, late in the season. He tweets out, "Hey, I just want to be the number 2 defensive tackle in the NFL." And Chiefs fans are ecstatic. They're talking about how much they love the guy, how unselfish he is. And I was cautious. I was like, this is not a good thing. He's asking for a raise. He wants to get paid quite a bit. This was pretty smart about Chris Jones. There were some low-key rumors. I didn't see it on any of the major media networks, but I saw a lot of it online coming up to the draft. Hey, is Chris Jones a possible trade candidate leading up to the draft, just like Tyreek Hill was? And most of the Chiefs' kingdom was pretty upset about these rumors. Like, oh, you're not a real Chiefs fan. You want to get rid of Chris Jones. Chris Jones is great. He's only asking to be paid 2nd. Now he's holding out. Chiefs Kingdom hates him. And what it is that he wants to get paid just less than Aaron Donald. I've heard different stories on the amounts, the figures. But bottom line, he's holding out. He's willing to report into week 8. If you're not familiar, week 8 is the trade deadline. So there is a possibility that he could be dealt at the trade deadline. Now, I'm sure Keas is going to 100% agree with me here when I say that we cannot win a Super Bowl without Chris Jones. So Keas, tell me I'm right here.
I don't think you believe that for a second, actually.
Hey, by the way, Funk, I know that Carolina and Detroit are playing right now, so I'm really glad to have you in. Yeah, Bryce better if he hasn't learned how to slide, that should be the first thing he should learn to do. So let me fire this off at you, because I have been adamant. I don't think the Chiefs can win a Super Bowl without Chris Jones. Am I right?
Wait, are we being serious right now?
I'm being serious. I think that we need Chris Jones to win a Super Bowl. As you can tell, me and Keas always agree. And Keas is going to agree with me right here on this point.
Yeah, I still don't think you're serious here because, I mean, I understand why a bunch of Chiefs Kingdom believes that, but the reality is Chris Jones is going to be gone from this team at some point, and we are still going to expect uh, the team to be competing for championships year in and year out after Chris Jones leaves. I think what the concern is that right now people are afraid we can't replace him. And of course he is, as much as you can say he's not Aaron Donald, but he's close enough there. It's like Mahomes and the second best quarterback in the NFL. You guys can all fight over if that's Burrow or Allen or Hurts or whatever. I'm staying out of that fight. I don't care. I'm just glad that we're no longer fighting over who's the number one. The fight's over who's number two. Yeah, I'm generally cautiously optimistic, and I can really lean towards the pessimistic side. But I think that right now I have enough faith in Joe Cullen that if it was just Spags and we were back when Brandon Staley was the defensive line coach, it would be a different question. But Joe Cullen is a great defensive line coach. He's been a defensive coordinator. He knows what the hell he's doing. And so I have a bit more confidence, or maybe hope, cautiously optimistic hope, that Joe Cullen can still make things work. And I'm still not convinced, Dan, that Chris Jones is in their plans after this year, this year or next year.
No, I think that after this year, I do think there's a definite possibility that he's gone. But just for this year alone, I think he's necessary. And I knew that you feel differently. And by the way, we are joined by the talent, Gooch.
You thought you was gonna get this show going off without the talent on it, baby?
So here's the deal. Keith said you were working on opening a cocaine dealership. So that's why you're.
I tell you what, it's hard work, brother. And then you gotta set up all kinds of stuff, and it's a rough go when you're trying to do a startup in pharmaceuticals. You know what I mean?
I understand. So here's, and I knew me and Keith are on different sides of the fence here.
You already have a number one customer right there.
So Gooch, I know you're going to agree with me. You're here and you're going to tell me Keys is wrong. We need Chris Jones to win a Super Bowl this year.
Which one of you said we don't?
Key said we don't need Chris Jones. I know that you're going to agree with me, and you're going to tell me we cannot win a Super Bowl without Chris Jones. I know that's what you're going to say.
I actually think that if Chris Jones doesn't – look, I love Chris Jones. I do. He's just making it easier for the Chiefs to tag him next year and not have to pay him as much money, because I did not know that the tag is based off the salary he accrues as opposed to the overall salary. So if you want to sit till week 8, you just make it easiest for us to tag you again for 2 more years. But honestly, I'm one of the few times I'm with Keys. I think Spags can manufacture pressure. And if they keep saying that our secondary is as good as it is, you can send Tranquil or Bolton or Willie Gay on a rush, and you can manufacture pressure and still get the desired result, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things is Dan, you kind of just framed it like in general, but I assume we're talking about through the first 7 weeks or so of the season. Can we still make it to the playoffs without Chris Jones those first 7 weeks or so?
Well, I'm talking, do we need Chris Jones in 2023 to win a Super Bowl?
I mean, he's going to be there at some point. So,
well, that actually brings up my second question: is that should we trade him at the deadline? The deadline. So he's going to report according to what we've seen on social media. He says he can hold out till week 8. That's actually going to be my next question. And so week 8, he said he's going to report, but he could come in sooner. week 8 is the NFL trade deadline. So let me ask you this here. Should we trade him at the trade deadline or before the trade deadline?
I think that depends on what we see those first 7 games. I really don't, like Gooch started to hint at there, I really don't think that he's going to hold out the first 7 games. If he does, I mean, yeah, there's a chance of it. We saw Orlando have a really stupid agent. It's really possible that Chris Jones has the dumbest agent in the NFL, because if he holds out until week 8, he does have the dumbest agent in the NFL for the reason that Gooch says, because the Chiefs will be able to tag him, and his tag number for next year will be somewhere between 23.5, 24.5 million. So whoever would be to trade for him would know that as well. And so, I expect to see him week 1 for that reason, or, at the very least, maybe week 2 or 3, maybe his hope is he'll set out week 1 and the Chiefs will feel the pain of not having him out there for week 1. And then he comes back in week 2 or week 3. I don't think there's any way he gets to week 8. And if he does, he should fire his agents because of what Gooch said. Because at the end of the day, you're giving the Chiefs or any team, right, a 2024 option on you for between 23.5, 24.5 million, which is what it would be if he sets out through week 7. Then you give them a 2025 option for just a few million more than that. So the Chiefs could get him for 2 years for well under $60 million for 24 and 25. And they have 3 one-year options, 2023, 2024, 2025. So if the man wants guaranteed money, the ceiling is set by that alone. And he lowers the ceiling by setting out. So I don't think he will. But if he does, he should fire his agents because they're the dumbest agents in the NFL. And I forgot what the question is because of that.
Well, my question is, should we trade him?
Right. Okay.
And that's kind of been a popular concept. A lot of people are saying is that should we trade him? And here's the thing: if we were going to trade him, it would have been much smarter to do it before the draft instead of after the draft at the trade deadline, because I think, number one, you have a better chance, not always, but you have a better chance of getting more trade capital. And you could use that trade capital at the trade deadline to add a player. I mean, I'm going to throw out a name. I'm not saying he's going to be available, but you could get somebody like maybe Grady Jarrett if Atlanta starts falling apart and they want to get rid of some draft capital. Grady Jarrett's like a diet caffeine-free, Chris Jones. I mean, he's a guy that would be good in the Chiefs. He's not anywhere near Chris Jones. I mean, let's be very clear.
Right.
But you had a player like that at the trade deadline. So if you did want to trade him, like my boy Tim points out, my thought would be to trade him to the Bears to get a first-round pick. The Bears wouldn't do that because they drafted 3 defensive tackles in the draft. But there would, if you were going to trade him, I think you do it before the draft, and that's something that. If he was going to be gone, I think you trade him before the draft. I don't think you trade him now. But I am with you, though. I do think he'll play. I actually think he's going to play week 1. So if you're a Chiefs fan right now, I think he's going to play against Detroit. I think he's going to report like 1 or 2 days before the Lions game, and I think he's going to play. Good, you tell me, man. Am I right?
Now, allow the petty to come in. Because I'm going to get real petty right now.
I want you to get petty. I'm glad you're doing it.
If I'm Clark Hunt or Brett Veach, and you've already held out all of my training camp, and you're threatening to hold out till week 8, none of us assume you're going to hold out till week 8. But now I've got that on the brain, see? And I'm in the news and in the press talking about how you're a cornerstone of this team, along with Kelsey and Mahomes. And I've talked about how we let Tyreek go with your contract in mind because we wanted you here. And you're playing hardball over. I'm going to assume that Chris wants 30 and the Chiefs are hovering around 26, 27. That's what I'm thinking. And so this is what I would do. Okay. So you're going to play this year. get the last of your money, right? And you think we're going to just allow you to walk in free agency. Nope, I'm going to tag you at $23.4 million for next year. And what a lot of people aren't talking about is there are 12 defensive tackle studs in college right now that all 12 of them aren't going to be off the board next year because people are going to need quarterbacks, people are going to need receivers. So now I tag you, and now guess what? Now you mentor the new guy. And he's young, and Brett Veach likes going young, and we'll play contract years undefeated. You're about to get 3 of them some bitches.
You know, he turned. I don't know. I don't know if he's 29 or 30.
Yes,
but
he just turned 29.
Okay, so I mean, like, we're kind of like, this is kind of at the point where players kind of go downhill.
Right.
I mean, I think if anything, I think he might have slightly declined. Which, when I say declined, he's still better than 95% of defensive linemen out there. But I mean, we've pretty much got him at his best. So if we do tag him, great. You're not going to play any better than you already have. And
here's another thing to think about that Chris Jones doesn't think about either. I keep saying it. I did some research. Brett Veach hasn't given an extended deal to any player over 28, I think. 29, something like that. He doesn't give long-term deals like that because, like Bill Belichick, God, I hate comparing. Once you get to a certain age, you're gone. Like if your usefulness is, if I think you're going to start going downhill, you're out of here. You know what I'm saying? I mean, and it's, and like I said, like I would tag him. I'd let him play this year. I'd tag him, bring in a new guy. If the new guy doesn't work, guess what? I'm going to tag you again. By the time you're done with us, it's 32. Good luck getting $30 million a year from somebody. Because regardless of what anybody thinks about how great Chris Jones was, there was another defensive tackle who was super great up till 29, and he got the very first $100 million contract, Albert Hainsworth.
Oh,
and
God, I almost forgot about Albert Hainsworth.
And he was in the tank the second he signed the deal. You know what I'm saying? I'm just putting it out there. I don't think we trade him. I think we let him play and then we tag him until we can find his replacement. And then think about that. Just about everybody on that line and in that secondary will be 25 years or younger.
Well, I was going to say, remember Richard Seymour? I remember, if I remember correctly, New England, I think 2 number 1s out of him, and he had one great game. The first game he was a Raider, he had 2 sacks, and he had 4 sacks total for that year. I think he was out of football 2 years later. Great move by Belichick, but you're right. It's kind of a Belichick type of move, you know, and that, I mean, it's mean, but it's a business, you know. I mean, you know, you don't want to pay a player who's. I mean, am I fair to say he's declining? I mean,
if you want me to be honest, and I'm gonna take a little Keas petty here. I have to think that he thinks he's declining a little bit, and that's why he's being so stubborn on his number, because he realizes that this could be it. Like, that might have been the best I've got. You heard Travis. Even Travis is getting harder and harder to, you know what I'm saying, make it through a season or even, you know, whatever like that. And defensive, and that's Kelsey, who's done really well at avoiding a lot of big hits. Chris Jones is in constant car crashes every week, numerous. So maybe in his mind, he's like, I only got a couple years left. You know what I'm saying? So I'm going to cash out now, but just as smart as you are, those guys in the front office are just as smart, and they see the plays that you take off that the fans don't see. You know what I'm saying? The effort that you don't put out there on certain plays. You know, yes, you step up finally in big moments, you know what I'm saying? But a lot of times it's quiet. You know what I mean? And Keas will be the first to point that out. Keas will tell you in a heartbeat. He's probably worth 25 max. You know what I'm saying? That's just what I think.
Well, let me ask you this here. Me and Keas, I don't want to speak for you, Keas, but we both think he's coming back week 1 for Detroit. Am I correct here?
Yeah, I mean, again, and for those out there who don't know, Chris Jones's agents, they're brothers, and they don't have any big name clients. Like half of their clients are former Chiefs receivers that most of you guys have never heard of. Chiefs fans would know them, but no one else basically would. And so, again, he should fire his agents if they push him to hold out. But if he's smart, and I'm trying to give him the benefit of the doubt here in believing he is, then he'll be there week 1, because I don't think there's any way whatsoever that a holdout, at least, again, I could see maybe week 1 to, just to be dumb and try to say, all right, here's what life without me would look like. And then come back week 2 or so. But definitely not to week 8, because you're messing with your own numbers. You're messing with your cap number. You're pissing off your teammates. And I don't care what they say in public when a reporter asks them a question and everyone knows there's a camera there and that the reporters are looking for sound bites. Like, I don't know how many times Eric Bieniemy has called Patrick Mahomes a competitive prick. Guess what competitive pricks do? They want their best players out there being competitive pricks too. So you can't tell me that Patrick Mahomes isn't pissed off right now. And so, yeah. And so, you know what? And going back to the trade thing, because I didn't actually answer it, I think it depends. I'm not going to give a straight answer. I think it depends on, at least a few things. 1, what's the Chiefs' record through those first 7 games? 2, what are teams willing to offer? And 3, what are their replacement? What does his replacements do? And I don't think that fans, we think of replacements, in kind of Madden terms, like, Chris Jones is like a 95 overall, and all we have is, a 78 and, a couple 68s to replace him with. And that's kind of one of the bad things about Madden is you don't get the whole point of what coaches do, the schematic advantages. And I heard the guys on KCSN talk about it. Like, if you want to see what they could do, if they don't have Chris Jones, go back and look at the 2016, 2017 Giants. Steve Spagnuolo didn't have a Chris Jones on his defense at any point. There's ways they can work around it. We have Danny Shelton, who, lost 10, 15 pounds. He's down to 330 pounds. They have some guys. They can do some things that are different there. They can get some of the same schematic advantages, even though you won't have the same kind of physically talented player. So I think those are the variables, how good the team's performing at that point. What are the trade offers? Because I'll throw a team out there. What about the Arizona Cardinals? And you said you get the most value before the draft. But if you're a team who, is kind of hoping to contend next year and not this year, you might go out and make that trade at the deadline, because you can tag him next year, especially if he sets out the first 7 weeks. You can have him next year for $24.5 million. What's he going to do? Set out again? He's going to set out age 29 and age 30 of his career? That's suicide.
Absolutely. I want to get, you said something very interesting I want to touch base on. I'm going to read some comments here. Tim says, my thoughts would be to trade him to the Bears, get a first-round pick, have money to extend Bolton and Creed. I don't want to lose them, but if we get a first-round pick and money to extend these guys, cool. That's a big thing, is because I definitely want to, we have to give Bolton a lot of money. We have to give Creed Humphrey a lot of money. We may lose Trey Smith, and he's a guy, he's on a 6-round deal, which is poverty level by NFL standards. He's a guy that's going to, after the year, even though he signed a 4-year deal, he'll be entering year 4 at the end of this year. He's a guy I fully expect to sit out. And I think if the Chiefs are smart, they try to work something out with Trey Smith sooner than later. Funk says Thielen is down. That's not good for Carolina at all. It looks like they put him back in. That doesn't make any damn sense. Jones won't go for a first, especially if him asking for a new contract to be a second and some player, something along those lines. I think he could be. I think you could get a first for him. I really do believe that you can get a first for him. It kind of depends on who. Like Arizona, like Keys mentioned, has 2 number ones. They have 2. By the way, if you're not aware, Arizona has something like I did the math. They have 24 draft picks. But that's a lie. But they have I think it's 11. They're just trading starters left and right in Arizona. It's kind of interesting. I'll talk about that here in a bit.
Yeah. I'd say, I think for sure first, if you put it in these terms, right now, how much would you pay for Aaron Donalds, who I believe is 33? Is that right?
I think I'm going to say 31 without looking it up. But
he's older than 31. I know that.
But I do know this, is that his best days are behind him. And I think he's getting, if I want to say, I think he's getting like 31, 32 million, something crazy high. Don't get me wrong, Aaron Donald's. Yeah,
32. Yeah. So we were in the middle of what we both said.
Split the difference.
Yeah.
But I mean, Aaron Donald, that's another thing. One of these days I want to talk about, because we can make a case about Aaron Donald being the all-time greatest defensive tackle of all time. I went through a video talking about him being the best.
But would you trade a first for him now? He's 32, so he's 3 years older than Chris Jones. Would you still, right now, with his contract, knowing he declined, would you still give up a 1 or at least a second?
The only way I would do that, if I was a playoff caliber team, and I'm going to give you 2 teams, and I don't think either one of these teams would do it. If I was a team like Jacksonville or Cincinnati, and I knew that giving up that 1's going to be a bottom 5-6 pick at worst, that's the only way I would do it. If I was a middle of the pack team, absolutely not. But if I was a team that's just like right on the heels of going to a Super Bowl, in the NFC, I mean, we could argue this for a while, but I mean, there's probably 5 or 6 teams that could say they're a second best team, and in the NFC. But in the AFC, I think Bills, Bengals, I'd argue Jaguars. If I'm one of those 3 teams, I might, and I say might. Slasher says tank for Marvin. Yeah, that's I can't wait for the draft to come around. I mean, of course, Slasher, we both agree we want to see the Chiefs go back-to-back Super Bowl wins, and then we're going to do a lot of draft talk. Moy, bro, Key, oi. Hopefully I got that right. Keys rant. Yeah, I love Keys' rants here. Corey, a.k.a. the Red Sea, I'm here finally. Simmons went for a 6, I believe. Corey will have to give you the details, but I believe a 6 or a 7. It's actually funny. I remember watching him. I was kind of paying attention, and he was either confused or bored out there. And I think it was a great move for the Giants to get Isaiah Simmons for almost nothing. I don't think it was for a 4th. It was a 7th. That's what I thought. I think Beach was going to trade him for the draft, but Jones treated, I'll never play for another NFL team. If you were going to trade him, I think you should have traded him before the draft, not after the draft. But Keys brings up a good point. Keep in mind, after week 6, we get Charles. I'm going to butcher the name.
Omenihu.
Okay, thank you, Keys. We get him back, and he's going to add quite a bit to this defense, and that's another situation that we want to bring out. It's a 7th-round pick. Great move for the Giants because it's a throwaway pick.
Yeah, and we would have done that trade too, right?
Oh, I would have. I mean, well, keep in mind, Isaiah Simmons played high school 10 minutes this way. So, like, yeah, I was actually at that high school earlier today. So, I mean, that sounds really bad, but official capacity. So anyway, I've always been a big Isaiah Simmons fan. I would love to have Isaiah Simmons here. Going to the Giants is a great move. Jazar Newton from Illinois is a dog. I don't know who that is off the top of my head. Don't know how accurate the statement of 12 defensive line studs is, but it isn't a bad. This draft has a lot of really neat things. It's actually funny, Corey. I don't believe it, but I've heard the rumor that Arizona's going to tank. They're going to get rid of Kyler Murray so they can draft Caleb Williams, of course. But here's the crazy rumor, and I don't believe this for a bit. Not only is Caleb Williams going to come to Arizona, they're going to bring – oh, crap. I just brain freeze. 35 minutes into the show, my first big name freeze.
Lincoln Riley.
Thank you. Lincoln Riley is going to bring Caleb Williams, and there's no way that this happens. There's no way it happens, but it's going to be something we're going to hear. I think we're going to hear quite a bit of it. Crazy, no one cared about Simmons being drafted in top 10 to play linebacker, but the Lions got destroyed at 18. Yeah, you know what? You have a very good point, Funk. You have a very good point. Yeah, because when he was drafted, I think 7th or 8th overall, a lot of people thought it was a great pick. But the Lions, and I still will stand by this because I had Campbell rated as second-round player, even though I really liked him. I know Keys liked him as well. Actually, that's a good question here. Jack Campbell, drafted 18th by the Lions. Did you feel like that was a reach? I know I did.
I don't care about that, but I don't think they're the same because I think with Simmons, you kind of always had that feeling that linebacker, safety, whatever, you were going to get, at least athletically, the potential was there to get a good player. And I think that kind of at least made people feel okay, that it wasn't necessarily a reach because is he a linebacker? Is he a safety? It kind of goes back to the Taylor Mays, Eric Berry kind of type of feel, at least in my opinion.
No, I thought so too. And I thought Arizona kind of messed it up because they put him at outside linebacker and they were going to try to make him a pass rusher, which really wasn't his thing. But no, you have a great point. And by the way, just because I think he's a reach doesn't mean I don't think he's going to be a good player. I expect him. You'd have to tell me, Funk, which Funk said he's taken off, and I don't blame him. He once watched a preseason game, but I think Campbell's going to be a day one starter at a key position for the Lions. So who cares if it's a reach? We're going to watch him his first NFL game. So I mean, I'm excited about it, and I know Keys is. Slasher says the 2024 draft is going to have a lot of offensive linemen come out around one, tons of studs. Is Fashanu to Penn State left tackle? I know Penn State's got left tackle. I'm seeing like top 5 potential. And Joe Alt.
He's going to be a Chiefs fan favorite. I can tell you right now.
Yeah. I remember watching his dad play quite a bit, and he looks. It's kind of funny because he looks just kind of like his dad. Yeah, and both those. If Fashanu's the Penn State left tackle, he's probably going top 10. It's going to be a great draft. Rebuilding teams don't give up draft capital for aging vets by history standards. Chris Jones could definitely go for a premium just basis off the spectacular season he had. Yeah, I don't think that he would go to a team rebuilding unless there are some other factors involved. But could he go for a first round? They could. And you're right, Slasher. Defensive tackles fall off cliffs around their 30s. Just look at Fletcher Cox. Yeah, and by the way,
I'm sure that's what Brett Veach is saying to Jones's agents.
Yeah, and Fletcher Cox is going to a Hall of Fame. We traded a half starter. Oh, Denver Gator says, great. I ran into a bunch of football nerds. I was looking for Division II softball updates. Denver Gator, welcome, brother. I shouldn't have even brought that up. What was I thinking? Heard the rumor. I sent you the post. Are you the one who sent me that about Lincoln Riley and Caleb? By the way, I don't believe that's going to happen. I wanted to know, but Gooch is busy at the cocaine dealership.
We can still talk because I want to touch on a few things while we're sitting here.
Hey, I want you to touch in on a lot of things, but I got to ask you first. When is Chris Jones going to play? Because me and Keys are in agreement. We always agree. He's going to play week 1 against the Lions. When do you think he's going to play?
Now, see, the flag, the banner raising is going to be against the Lions. Now, I think part of me says he shows up for that, but I actually believe that his agents are dumb. And he's going to sit week 1 because he's going to show that we really need him. But what people don't, and Keys brings up repeatedly, Spags' defenses always start out slow, and then they pick up and get great near the end of the season. So I want him to show up week 1. I would say 45%, but I actually think his agents are morons, and they'll be like, yo, why don't you go ahead and show him so maybe we can get that leverage to get that contract you want. But I wanted to put something else on that. Chris Jones last year, age 29 season, 28 season.
Right.
15 and a half sacks, right? Some would consider this probably his best season in the NFL. He's finally probably recognized as the top defensive tackle. But if you let Keys go back in, which I'm sure he has it somewhere, Chris Jones' best season is still short of Aaron Donald's average season.
By about 40%.
So you're not going to command Aaron Donald money, and you're not as consistent as Aaron Donald at his worst. I'm not giving you $30 million for that. I also think that if you get a first-round pick, it'll be picked 28, 29, 30, something like that. You're not going to get, like Arizona, if Houston's half as bad, Arizona's going to end up with picks number 1 and 2 in next year's draft.
That's I have a preseason chart, and that's what Arizona has right now. The preseason chart I have for the 2024 draft, picks 1 and 2. So,
and me personally, I liked Isaiah Simmons coming out of college. I really wanted him to drop because I thought in the Chiefs defense he would be phenomenal. He is an athletic freak. I just think he got in the wrong defense with the wrong coordinator.
Yeah, I think Wink Martindale's going to do wonders with him.
Yeah.
And I'm with
stays healthy.
I'm with DeAndre Hopkins. If they put him to use and he blows up, the Giants fleece them for that 7th rounder. You know what I'm saying? And also, shout out to Trey Lance for getting traded to the Cowboys. I think a fresh start is what he needs. And maybe playing behind Dak, not having the pressure. Because he showed a little something in their last game. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, I just wanted to put that out there.
No, I agree. That's actually what we led the show off with was Trey Lance. That kind of floored me a little bit. And I agree completely. I think going to Dallas is a great move. I think it's a smart move for the Cowboys, and it's a good move for Trey Lance. The big loser is San Francisco, who gave up 3 number 1s and gets a 4th in return. But I mean, Darnold's looked good. They got their guy in Brock Purdy, which we'll find out about how good he is.
I honestly believe the biggest loser is Dak because they get that young boy in there, and Dak's not going to get $50 million on this next contract.
Well, I'll tell you what, you better not miss 6 weeks again because if Trey Lance goes 5-1, just like Cooper Rush did, then there's going to be a quarterback controversy and maybe a well-deserved one. Slasher asks, is Justin Ross okay? He's looked pretty decent in preseason. That's actually the next thing that we're going to talk about is the Chiefs Cardinals because Justin Ross did look really good. And I'll start off with you. I'll let you guys determine which one you want to talk about here. Justin Ross, by the way, is okay. It looks like he's going to be good to go. I'm expecting him to play a lot tomorrow. Keys, you want to fire away about Justin Ross?
Yeah, first off, I'm going to do this like a political debate, right? Where you get your time and then you talk about something else and then you answer the question in like 5 seconds. But I just wanted to point out, another thing when we were talking about the whole Chris Jones trade, part of that is, if you do trade him at the trade deadline, not only are you getting those picks, but you're also going to get some cap space to roll over to 2024. And that's a big bonus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But yeah, I think right now there was a lot of excitement about Justin Ross before we even saw a preseason game. And I don't think we've seen anything to halt the hype train so far. I think for most of the rest of us who are at least hesitant, we've seen him, at least get hit now, a couple games, which was my concern. just seeing him get hit after what he's been through, the injury he had. And so, the comps are out there to Sammy Watkins. And if you get someone of Sammy Watkins' caliber when healthy, who you picked up as a UDFA, that's a huge win for Brett Veach and this offense. So I'm really excited to see what the receivers in general. But yeah, definitely Ross, because he does some stuff a guy his size shouldn't be able to do. So that's fun.
Yeah, he did look good here. Gooch, if you're not busy at the cocaine dealership here, man, what are your thoughts there on Justin Ross?
I'm still worried because he can still be hurt permanently, taking a hit. But I'm gonna go. Mahomes said it best. For being as tall as he is and as fluid as he is, he's left even some of our first string DBs out of picture frame. And he's got the hands. He's a jump ball guy, which I think Mahomes hasn't had. And Mahomes loves him. And when they're talking, he brings up those two first, Rice and Ross. And if Mahomes is happy, you got to believe, okay, yes, Andy and Tobe and Spagnuolo have obviously 51% of the vote for Andy, but if Mahomes is like, hey, it's Ross kid, like, you know what I'm saying? They'll make Ross maybe not a gunner, but they'll put him in there on special teams and just be like, just run down there and don't hurt yourself.
Well, let's bring you into kind of next thing here because we talked about it and he looked pretty good. And
well, I was before you get into that, like he looked good. Okay, here's the thing: like the naysayers are going to say, "Oh, he looked great against the 2s and the 3s." First of all, first round talents are supposed to look great against the 3s, but against Arizona, those were mostly the backups. And you can say it's not a top tier defense. You're playing in the NFL. You're one of the elite regardless. And he was getting open. His nuances in his route running. I was watching. Oh, I can't think of who I was watching, but they broke down his routes and was talking about how he slowed down to put himself in a position where Buechele could hit him with the ball as opposed to running into the next safety or whatever. Like he took the route full speed and then started slowing down to give Buechele a window. You know what I'm saying? And that most people don't have that nuance in their route running. And he's a lot crisper than I thought he was going to be. I mean, that's just my opinion. I hope he builds on it. I'd love to see him on the team. If not, I would still root for him wherever he goes. Somebody's going to pick him up. Because he won't make the practice squad.
No, he won't make the practice squad. I don't think he's a lock to make the team. But I mean, no, he played really well. Actually, this kind of goes inside because I did want to talk a little bit about Chiefs and Cardinals and who stood out, players that you liked. Keys brought something up about the changing of the defenses, which is something that I thought was kind of interesting and something that they did against Arizona. Whichever one of you guys wants to start, man. Who were the players that really stood out, or what stood out about Arizona and Kansas City last Saturday?
You gonna go first, Gooch?
Sure. What stood out to me?
Yeah.
That Buechele kid's got some balls, don't he? That boy just like I legit thought that he was due to be cut or traded. He wasn't gonna make the practice squad either, but I was sure that, okay, they brought in
Gabbert.
I was like, surely he's gonna be the lock, but then Buechele was like, don't forget about me. I mean, he played his game.
If you're not familiar, if you didn't watch the game, Buechele, I'm butchering the name here, is the Chiefs' quote-unquote third-string quarterback. He's not a lock to make the team. He went in after Mahomes, not the backup quarterback. So if you didn't watch the game, the Chiefs went from Mahomes to Buechele.
Bouchel.
Bouchel. I'll get the name right sooner or later, maybe. This is why you call the girl baby, because you don't want to get her name wrong. But they went from first string to third string quarterback.
You just asked her what her name was again.
Yeah,
You know
but it was really interesting because the Chiefs went from first to third string quarterback, and then in the third quarter they brought in Gabbert, their second string quarterback. So by the way, Gabbert is going to be the number 2 quarterback for the Chiefs. That's just the way it is. But Rochelle played really damn good. And I thought it was really surprising that they brought him in as the third string. They brought him in after Mahomes. I thought that was very surprising, and he did. He played lights out.
I also liked Smith Marset. I just think it's too much talent ahead of him.
He had a great game.
I think. I do think Ross makes the team if they go 7. I think Blake Bell's out of here. I think the one good thing he does is block and run that sneak. That's not a sneak because everybody knows it's coming now. And it's funny that because Keas said something about that, and right after he did, and I'm kind of glad we're talking now because I didn't bring it up. Me, Keas, and Aaron are in a group chat, but right after Keas had brought that up, they showed a 4th and 1 in the Super Bowl where McKinnon lined up at fullback and he gained 14. Even just something, that little difference instead of what everybody was preparing for could be better. I mean, I get it. You don't want to run Mahomes, the knees. I get it. But Keys will tell you, like, that is the stupidest play in the Chiefs' arsenal because when Blake Bell comes in, everybody knows if it's 4th down, what's coming. You know what I'm saying? And then I saw that play from McKinnon. I was like, that might be the first time I've ever seen us do a variation of that.
Well, McKinnon was a college quarterback. He was a college quarterback, and he switched to running back as soon as he got to the NFL. Blake Bell, his situation was kind of interesting. He was, see if you can follow the timeline here. I'll try to make this short. He was the starting quarterback at OU when Mahomes took the job at Texas Tech away from Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield walked on to OU, took Blake Bell's job, and Blake Bell's, they were like, hey, you can leave or you can be a tight end. And somebody wisely told Blake Bell, hey, listen, you don't have a future at quarterback, but try this tight end thing out. And he wisely listened, and he's played. I don't know off the top of my head what he's been in the NFL, 8 years, something like that. He wouldn't have an 8-year career at quarterback. So you don't think Blake Bell even makes the team then?
Yeah, he's muted. I don't know if he's there, but
sorry. No, I actually don't. Like I think if you're weighing it and you're going to keep the 3 quarterbacks and you're going to give Mahomes the 7 receivers, like I think it's 3s all the way down. I think it's 3 quarterbacks, 3 running backs, 3 tight ends, 7 receivers, because you're going to keep 9 to 10 offensive linemen. You know what I'm saying? And I plus the specialists or whatever. I don't know if they count on their own against the 53, or as far as offensive or whatever. But yeah, I don't think if he does, it's hey, we're going to cut you, put you on the practice squad, and if something happens to Bushman or something like that, we'll bring you up.
Yeah, I'm actually 100% with Gooch on this one. Basically, everything he said, he's ripped off of me. And I mean, basically everything, because the reality is, and it's nothing against Blake Bell, but from the numbers I saw last year, Noah Gray is now the best blocking tight end we have on the roster. And Jody Fortson wasn't that far behind before his injury. So, in my mind, it was Travis, Noah, and Bushman, and they have some other guys they brought in, but I was there with 3. And just a little correction for Gooch here. In the Super Bowl, I don't think it was 4th down, but it was a goal line play that McKinnon was lined up as fullback. And I tweeted this out a couple weeks ago. when I was showing all the slippage on the turf, every single clip from the Super Bowl.
You do know if the field was good, Philly would have won by 50.
And so McKinnon was lined up at fullback, and he was the blocker for Pacheco, who scored a touchdown on the play. So, yeah, I think at this point it's driven every Chiefs fan crazy. And even those who want to try to say Andy's putting it on tape to run a different play out of it, nobody cares, because at the end of the day, my mindset is you have two options. Okay. Line up like the Eagles do. I don't call it a quarterback sneak. I call it a quarterback scrum because that's what it reminds me of, rugby. Not a sneak, because it's not a sneak. Everyone knows it's coming. There's nothing sneaky about it, right? So I call it a quarterback scrum for those reasons. It doesn't have to be Mahomes. It can be Gabbert. You could use Blake Bell in that way. I don't care, but get the guys behind him and do it the same way the Eagles do, because we have pound for pound, if not as good, nearly as good of an interior offensive line as the Eagles do. There's no reason we can't just do that. But if you're not going to do that, don't do that stupid Blake Bell sneak that's not a sneak. Just let Mahomes have the ball on fourth down. And if you want to do it, you can have the running back there to do an option, or to just let him bootleg out, keep the running back over. If he needs to pitch it, he can pitch it. Otherwise, have someone, running a drag, someone running a crosser, give them an easy play that, we've already ran a million times on 4th and 1 with Mahomes and Henne. Just do that instead, because the Blake Bell play is stupid. And, I'm with Gooch that he shouldn't be on the roster. I think my standouts, though, contrary to what One Pride said, who I'm not sure even watched any Chiefs preseason games so far, our offensive tackles have been really freaking good in the first two games. And especially in this Cardinals game, I would say that would be who I would highlight, especially outside of, we already talked about Buechele. I was actually impressed with, now finally I'm going to have my Dan impersonation here and butcher a name, but I think it's Olakundo, the fourth quarterback that came in.
Oh, yes. Yes.
He was really fun to watch in the fourth quarter. I'm
a big fan of his. I thought it was a great draft pick. He was a 7th round pick. I believe South Dakota State. He went to Pittsburgh. Steelers drafted him in the 7th round. I thought it was a great move, because there's a lot to like about this kid. A lot to like about him. I have a hard time seeing him make the team, though. But
yeah, I don't think he's going to make the team, but he was fun to watch.
Very impressive.
But I do think Buechele's going to make it. I do think Ross is going to make it. I do think there's going to be 7 wide receivers on the roster.
Well, I've been raving about him because he was my favorite draft pick. Rashee Rice did the first play. I think it was maybe the first play that he drops the ball, and I'm like, great. And then
right,
just fantastic game the rest of the time. Just played lights out.
With a little bit of luck in there, though, because he had that really good run that he then fumbled, and the ball came right back to him. So
yeah, and that's a good thing to happen in preseason. We don't want this to happen in regular season. Yep. I'm glad Keys caught this, because One Pride, I didn't want you to think that we weren't. By the way, I'm glad you're here, One Pride, man. Here's the deal. He played lights out, but he's 29 or 30. I'm not going to look up the age, but
he's 29. He just turned 29. Okay. Yeah.
He's not getting better. He's not going to improve his play. If nothing else, he's plateaued or peaked. He's not getting better. That's kind of the way I look at it. And by the way, yeah, I am concerned about this, but I'm going to use my point now. The player that really stood out and this was really interesting. Well, there's 2 players that really stood out for me besides Rashee Rice. I have my name freeze here. Danny Shelton has played phenomenal. He's probably my preseason MVP. Keith mentioned he
takes up 2 or 3 gaps, just his size alone.
Yeah. And what they did, this is interesting because what they did week 1 is they kind of experimented with a, I'm going to put it in quotes here, 3-4 defense because, the 3-4-4-3 is kind of becoming obsolete. But what they did is they tried using more odd fronts and kind of switch things up. Joe Colin, if you're not familiar, he came from Baltimore, where they ran a very confusing 3-4 defense. It was lots of variations. It was very confusing, very detail-oriented under Wink Martindale, who's now the Giants coordinator. Colin left to take the defensive coordinator job with
Jacksonville.
Jacksonville under Urban Meyer. Of course, that was a disaster. Can't blame Colin for that. But he has a 3-4 background. But the Wink Martindale difference in the Spags defense is almost polar opposite. You couldn't get more different in the defenses, but it looked like we were seeing a 3-4 defense where Danny Shelton was playing more of a zero technique, playing more of a nose tackle, defensive tackle. Against Arizona, though, they used him just like the Chiefs used Chris Jones. They used him as a 3-tech, and he played really well. He stuffs the run. You're not getting – I think let's just say he's our starting defensive tackle, Danny Shelton, let's just say. At max, he's getting 4 or 5 sacks. That's his ceiling. He's not a guy who's going to put pressure on the quarterback, but you can't move him. He stuffs the run. And I thought that FAU – I don't know if it's because he wore a single number in college and now he's wearing 97, but he looks a lot bigger because he was a guy I thought that would have to put on some weight to play in the NFL. He doesn't look like he needs to put on weight. Like he looks raw, but he had I think a half a sack against Arizona. But Danny Shelton has been my preseason MVP, and I think that what the Chiefs are going to do is switch up their defense quite a bit, which is not something Spags has done in the past. And I think that with Shelton, you get a guy that you can use in. I'm not going to tell you he's a 4-3 tackle. I'm not going to tell you that, but they used him as a 4-3 tackle against Arizona, and he stuffed the run. You got 2 first-round picks on the outside. The other player I want to point out is one of my major draft crushes, Darian Kennard. Last preseason, they tried him at right tackle. It was a disaster. He looks like he slimmed down. They put him at guard. He demolished everybody. It's really rare when you watch a game and a guard stands out. Darian Kennard just destroyed everybody. And he's a guy that I'm not even sure he makes the team. I'm not 100% sure he makes the team. I hope he does. I think he'll make the team over a guy like Lucas Nang. But Darian Kennard just played lights out. Every time they ran the ball behind him, he was just blowing people off the ball. It was just amazing. I watched clips of it. I kept on rewinding. I'm like, is he really just dominant? You're supposed to dominate against second and third string players. I get that, but you're a guy fighting for a roster spot. That's how you make the team, is by blowing up your players. So Darian Kennard, Shelton's my MVP of the preseason. Darian Kennard played lights out against Arizona. And then of course, Rashee Rice had a really good game as well. So that was kind of my preseason take. But I also really liked how the Chiefs kind of looked like they're playing around with using some 3-4 fronts instead of just the stereotypical Spags defense. Did you see that as well, Keys, or is it just me projecting what I want to see?
No, I'll have to go back and look. I haven't been able to get, and I don't want to reach out to NFL.com support because they're just going to tell me to clear my cache and everything. But I haven't been able to get my access to all 22 for just Chiefs, both Chiefs games. I can get every other one, just not Chiefs.
Wow,
which is weird.
Okay, but, I haven't signed up for that NFL Plus, and now I don't want to. I'm being cheap. Yeah,
they have their issues.
Cash, so But I've been toying around with getting the Sunday ticket so I can watch more games. I haven't done it because YouTube TV's done a fantastic job of playing the games on Tuesday. So Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, I just watch a ton of games. I try to watch every single game that they play. I catch most of them, not all of them, but Yeah, those are my two players, Darian Kennard and Danny Shelton's been playing lights out. But yeah, if you get a chance, if you watch week 1, it looks like the Chiefs are playing almost entirely, and I'm going to use in air quotes here, a 3-4 defense, and then it looked like last week against Arizona, they were like, hey, just do your best Chris Jones impression. And while he's not the pass rusher, he's the run stuffer. And there's a reason why you draft a couple edge rushers in the first round. So,
yeah. And, and I know Karlaftis, I'm expecting a lot bigger season from him this year. But let me ask you this, and you can tell me if I'm way off here, Dan. Are you more concerned, because there were many years, many Spags years that we'd been concerned about the run defense, other than I think the year that we had Mike Pennell on the defensive line, and then Reggie Ragland as one of our linebackers. I think that was about the best year our run defense was. But are you worried because of the personnel we have, or do you think that the success of our run defense is going to be more, of a keeping Nick Bolton clean type of thing? It's going to be more on the offense to find ways to keep Nick Bolton blocked and Willie Gay, because, Willie Gay's right there. Those two are always on tape getting a tackle in the run game. So, to me, that's kind of the thing. Is it not having Chris Jones out there isn't necessarily your run defense is screwed. It's more about, the games that I saw where the run defense was worst was where the offensive coordinators knew how to use their fullback and knew how to manipulate, put their tight ends in positions, to pull and everything to make sure that at the end of the day, they surprised Nick Bolton and they had him covered for the play, and he wasn't just clean to run however he wanted to.
If you're not familiar, if you're watching this, Nick Bolton, if I'm correct, was, I think, 4th in the league in tackles. And why he didn't go to a Pro Bowl, I have no clue. I mean, I thought he played phenomenal. He was a call away from being Super Bowl MVP. He scores 2 touchdowns, even though he's a linebacker. He probably wins Super Bowl MVP. I think teams are trying to figure. I think teams are. And by the way, Drew Tranquil has looked really good. The Chiefs got a nice linebacker unit, a really nice linebacker unit. Like I said, I think that we're seeing something different in Spags, where he's going to show some variations of his defense, and I think part of that is to keep the linebackers clean. Because one thing, I'm a huge Chris Jones fan. I want him in Kansas City. I'm adamant about this. I don't think without Chris Jones we can't get to the Super Bowl. I really firmly believe that. I think we trade him unless we get a player back or get somebody to come in, a high caliber player. I don't think we go to a Super Bowl. But his specialty, even though he's good against the run, his specialty is getting after the passer. I think part of the reason I've been so impressed with Danny Shelton is that I think that we're going to see something different with the Chiefs defense, where we're going to see we first game the first preseason game, we saw a lot of blitzing, which I was very surprised about. We didn't see that much in the second game. But I think we're going to see that. Detroit, I don't know if we're going to blitz all the time against Detroit. If we're not going to blitz, if Chris Jones is there, how are we going to use him? I will say this: if Chris Jones does report for the Lions game, he's not going to play, 60, 70 snaps. So I will say that. Let me ask you this here, and what are you looking for tomorrow? Again, actually, I'm going to read a few comments here, and then I'm sorry, I thought I had my phone shut off. I'm going to read some comments, and then I want to know what you're thinking about Baltimore here. Ask her what her name is. She says her name, and then that's a good one, Denver Gator. That's a good one. And by the way, One Pride, I am concerned about our run D, especially against Detroit week 1. Raise your hand if you miss our. You know what? Our tackles have played really well so far. Have played really, really, really well. Raven76, be more welcome, brother, man. Chris Jones is that player. Oh, God. That, to be honest with you, when you guys lost Calais Campbell, that you didn't really replace him. He's a guy, Chris Jones would fill that role, and your linebacker unit would just be fantastic.
Maui was being sarcastic, by the way. Maui is not.
Yes,
is not a concrete Lockfeet Junior fan.
Yeah, I to be honest with you, that's something. I was a big Orlando Brown fan. I really liked him, but so far from what I've seen, Donovan Smith looks fantastic, and Juwan Short looks like he's going to be a Pro Bowl right tackle. I mean, look, it's 2 games in preseason, but I mean, so far our tackles have looked fantastic. This is actually a great segue here. What are you looking for tomorrow with the Chiefs versus the Browns?
I mean, I think that's part of it right there is to, we don't know how long they'll be out there. I don't know. We might see Mahomes out there because he wants his first hit, but they might have to put him out with the second team offensive line for that to happen. But, I think it's just the same things. It's the offensive tackles, can they do it another week? The wide receivers, who locks in that 7th spot? I'm declaring it so. There's 7 wide receivers. Who locks in that 7th spot? How to, 8, 9, 10, how do all those guys that are competing, how do they stack up? Can anyone, really force the coaching staff and Brett Veach to make a really hard decision after the game? So I think those are the clear things on offense. And you could even put in, quarterback. Andy Reid has said that it's a legit, competition for backup, and that Gabbert and Bouchel are really, really close. Who knows how much of that is true, but, I still think they keep 3, but I think those are the things on the offense. Again, on the defense, I think it's that same thing. What does the defensive line look like? What is the defensive tackle situation? How does that play out in the game? And if Jones doesn't show up, I think it's going to continue on for the first quarter, of the season. And I know Andy thinks of, each quarter, the whole season in quarters, and they want to get a strong start, just because that always puts you in the best position to win as many games as you can. I think Spags has always kind of taken the opposite approach, though, in that, the offense gives him a luxury to continue his preseason 6-8 games into the season to where, it took a bombardment of reporters asking, like, week 6, like 2 years ago, why is Sorensen in instead of Thornhill, and just repeatedly thumping before Spags made changes before a bye. And so, that'll be interesting to see. But, I'm not worried about that, because I think that what you're going to see is Mahomes break passing records if Chris Jones isn't in, and they'll just, whatever the defense is, back to the Texas Tech days, only Cliff Kingsbury is not even a fraction of a talent as Andy Reid is. So,
it's funny, as you were talking, I'm looking at the roster, and the main thing I'm looking at is that I'm going to tell you this right now. There's at least 7 to 10 players the Chiefs are going to cut that are going to play on Sundays. All right. I'm not saying starters, but I'm looking at this receiving core. Smith-Marset, I don't think he makes the team. He's going to make another NFL team, and he's going to play. And when I say play, he's going to be wide receiver 4 or 5. He's a special teams guy. He's a guy that can play in the NFL. Blake Bell maybe makes the team. That's actually the number one thing, is because I think Bushman's been playing. They're really high on Bushman. This year he replaces Blake Bell as tight end number 3, and then you only keep 3 tight ends because Fortsum. You have to answer this. I should know this. Is Fortsum out the entire season, or is he on IR and can come back later?
He can't come back. No.
Okay. So Bushman be that number 3 tight end. my boy Darian Kennard, who I thought was dominant last week, there's no guarantee that he makes this team. I'm looking at this offensive line. Wanda is it Wana Morris, the kid out of Oklahoma? Yeah. Even about him. Teo Wagano, that's another guy. Austin Ritter's probably going to make the team. I'm kind of curious how much Lucas Nang plays because he's a guy I think that's on the hot seat.
I don't think Ryder makes the team.
You don't think Ryder makes the team?
I don't think so.
That's something that we're going to find out, I think, this last preseason game. I think that we're going to have several receivers that are fighting for spots, and I think we're going to have a couple offensive linemen that are fighting for spots. And Ritter's a guy I think that's going to play quite a bit, and I think he does.
Prince Winnebago, he's going to be I think he's fighting for a spot too. He's been in the system too long and hasn't really shown much. And I think they take a stab at Kennard one more time. If the thing about Niang is Niang healthy? And how long do you think he can stay healthy? And is it worth it? You know what I'm saying? I think that's really the only way that Ryder makes the team if they decide Niang. The health of Niang doesn't justify them keeping him on the roster.
You know, it's kind of funny. We've almost been on for about an hour 20. We didn't even mention CEH yet. And I thought one thing that's been very surprising is he's been Pacheco's out. You know, he's injured. Apparently, I think he's coming back week 1, but CEH has been the featured starter, and this was a guy I really thought was on the bubble, but it looks like his spot is definitely secure as of right now.
Oh yeah, that's it's him, Pacheco, and McKinnon. They're the 3 going into the season.
You don't think they keep a 4th running back?
I think P. Ryan for sure.
Yeah, I thought P. Ryan played fantastic. And then I think one of the things that this is kind of a dirty trick the NFL does, and the Chiefs, I think, are going to do it and wisely, is that they're going to not play Prince that much, cut him, and then sign him to the practice squad because they really want to keep this guy. But I think P. Ryan is clearly the better player as of right now. But I'm looking at these receivers. We didn't even mention Cornell Powell. I thought he looked pretty good. He's a guy that the Chiefs put in the practice squad. Played a little bit last year, and then Gooch does not like Powell.
Oh, that's not why he's laughing.
Oh, okay.
Powell's been in the system too long to not finally make plays in the preseason. I just think it's too little, too late for him.
Yeah, I think he's a guy. He's a guy that I do think will play in the NFL, though. He played on special teams last year. I think that he'll get cut, and I think he'll be signed, and I think he'll play on Sunday. He'll be wide receiver number 5. Same with Smith Marset.
On another channel, there was this guy who shall not be named who was singing the praises of Powell when he was coming out of Clemson. And I, along with other smart people that I did a show with, consistently said that dude couldn't even get separation in college. How do you think he was going to star in the Chiefs offense? And every year his name comes up, I laugh because that gentleman says this could be the year that Powell breaks out and he ends up back on the practice squad again.
I don't think he ends up on the G. I think he's going to be signed with another team because I'm looking at this receiving core, and I don't see how he makes the team.
Yeah, I think he could be a 5th or 6th receiver on another team. You know who he reminds me of? He's like
Jacksonville from us.
He's the offensive version of Rashad Fenton.
Yes, that's a good one.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. And I think he's still with Atlanta. He's like corner 4.
I think he got injured.
Atlanta. Yeah, I it's something they should have been following. Well, I know the other corner, the one that was with Detroit. I'm drawing. I can't believe number 3 pick overall. Yeah. Okuda's banged up. I think Okuda's scheduled to come back and play soon. But I don't know about Fenton. But yeah, you're right. I don't think he makes the team this year. I think Powell's out. Smith Marset, I think, unfortunately, will be out.
I think Amir Smith Marset, as much as I love him as a Hawkeye, he would be number 8. That's where I have him, as the number 8 receiver right now, without seeing tomorrow's game. But that's where I would have him, and I think Powell's behind him.
Yeah, I actually agree with you completely. I got the depth chart pulled up. That's kind of where I would have him. I would have Powell behind Smith Marset. And I'll be honest with you, I don't think Smith Marset makes the team. I'm looking at 7. And I was one of those people. I'm not sold on Justin Ross. I'm not sold on Justin Ross. And now I'm like, hey, look, I want to see what the kid can do.
So Dan, you're the host, but let me flip this on you and ask,
Sure.
What would you need to see from him tomorrow to be convinced he's making the roster?
Nothing. I think he's made the roster.
Okay.
I think he's made the roster. The one thing that bothers me though is that I could have sworn that he was going to play special teams. I don't remember him playing special teams, and I don't think he's a special teams guy. But I do know that Rashee Rice will play special teams, and I think Justin Watson plays special teams. Kadarius Toney's going to return punts and kicks. And Richie James is going to be a 4-down. He
has been getting some snaps.
Okay. I for some reason or another, I don't see anything from Justin Ross on special teams. I don't think he's going to be a special teams guy, but in my opinion, I think he makes the team. I think he's a solid. I don't know the number, but let's be honest. As much as I love Kadarius Toney, he's going to miss some games. All right. There's no way he's playing 17. So, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if they even move him up to like wide receiver number 4, because I think Justin Watson, even though he hasn't played much in preseason, he's a guy that the Chiefs like. I've been saying this since the draft. Rashee Rice is, you guys, if you don't already like him, you're going to keep liking him. He's going to have a big impact. This was my favorite draft pick. He's a really, really good player, and it kind of sucks because I do think Smith Marset and Powell are NFL players, but I don't see a way that either one of them make the team. Blake Bell's on the bubble. It's kind of funny because I'm looking at the depth chart on defense. I think the only thing that Spags is doing is just kind of having some fun and experimenting with a variation of a 3-4. I don't think there's really too many jobs that are really on the line. I think the roster's pretty much set. I think they're talking about 7th round draft pick Nick Jones out of Ball State. I think he's banged up. I'm not even sure he's going to play tomorrow. That's the only thing I can think of off the defensive side of the ball. I think everything's set on the defensive side. I think it's the offensive side.
Do you think Connor's making it? Kamari Connor?
I don't. I really don't. I wouldn't mind. Don't get me wrong, but I just don't. I really don't. I
think he is.
I think that I mean you have what Edwards, Cook. I think that they're going to go with those two. You're going to have Reed and Bush. I think the Chiefs are just going to keep those 4, and I think you're going to see more. I think you're going to see. As much as I hate to say it, it may sound a little crazy, but I think some of the 3 safety looks that we saw last year, that's going to be replaced with Tranquil. And I'm not calling him a safety, but I think we're going to see a lot more 3 linebacker looks. And because I think we're going to see a lot more 3-man fronts. And that's kind of what I think the Chiefs are going to do. I think you'll see a lot of 3-3-5, but I think we'll see Tranquil play a lot more in pass coverage than they have in the past. Instead of having 3 safeties, I think we'll see a lot of 3 linebackers instead.
I agree with that. I think I said it on your show the last time I was on, but I still think Connor is going to be on. I think I think he's too good of a blitzer. He's young. He's more cost controlled than a player like Bush. He'll play special teams, and I don't think that they have to just play him at safety. So I think he's going to give Spag the versality that.
I apologize because I got the players mixed up. No, Connor's making the team. I apologize. Connor's the rookie out of Virginia Tech. Okay, I apologize. I thought he was the free agent out of Texas.
Spags has compared him to Matthew already. So
yeah,
I got the two players mixed up. Connor's the rookie out of Virginia Tech that I thought was kind of a project type of player. Cook's an undrafted free agent out of Texas. So I apologize. I it's rare that I get a name wrong.
Spags was comparing him in one of his
Spags
conference. Spags was comparing him to Matthew already, like they were dumping so much stuff on him already that I think, like he said, cost controlled. And yeah, Matthew's a veteran, but if he's got half of that already, it's going to work wonders in that secondary.
No, my apologies there. I dropped the ball. But
here's another thing though. Deion Bush has a $1.1 million cap hit. Only $350,000 of that is dead money, so they would get some nice some relief back. I
didn't think about that. I mean, if you're really tight for money, but I think that he makes the team. But I think when I look at this last preseason game against Cleveland, I'm really going to be kind of focusing on the offense. On the Cleveland side of the ball, that rookie DTR, the Dorian Thompson Robinson, I believe that's right. It's kind of funny. My buddy Tim really likes him, and I really liked him. And my buddy Tim, before the draft's like, what do you think? And I was like, I think he's like, 6th, 7th round pick. He might have to play receiver or running back. He's not an NFL quarterback. And he's done nothing but prove me wrong. And it looked like he's gone from a guy that's risking getting cut. Now I think he's firmly entrenched as the backup quarterback to Deshaun Watson. I mean, that's just maybe the best preseason story, around is, this guy's fighting for a roster spot to be the backup quarterback. And hey, let's face it, backup quarterback's a great deal. And if he does play, you never know. I mean, you never know. I mean, that's the same exact story when, we were just talking, Dak Prescott. Remember Tony Romo, big time quarterback, made a ton of money. 4th round rookie comes in. Next thing you know, Tony Romo's on TV doing a phenomenal job, by the way. So
does this kid play special teams? Is he on the onside kick unit?
The quarterback?
Yeah, I was under the impression that Watson's backup had to be on the hands team.
He might. I that's something I'm actually anxious to watch. I've only seen the clips and the highlights, and then I watched a little bit more of them because I did like him. If you're not familiar with the kid, who's a 4-year starter at UCLA, Chip Kelly, who was from Oregon, then he went to Philly, and then he went to San Francisco. Now he's back at UCLA. It's still weird that UCLA is going to play in the Big 22 or whatever the hell it is, the UCLA Iowa Classic. I mean, it's so bizarre. But yeah. So anyway, by the way, he's doing a fantastic job at UCLA too. It's not that UCLA USC game was really good last year. But anyway, he's a guy. I'm not going to call Chip Kelly running a pro style offense, but because he's been in the NFL, they do have some pro schemes. So he's not, he may be a little more advanced than some quarterbacks. It's hard to say, but maybe something we'll look for is he going to play on special teams? But it's a great story. That's kind of the only thing I'm really looking at with Cleveland is checking out the rookie quarterback. That's about it. Everything else I really don't care too much about.
Well, I'm clearly going to have the FBI after me because my joke bombed. So we're talking about Deshaun Watson's backup being on the hands.
Oh, God. I missed it. I missed it. Oh God. So, Gooch, let me ask you this here. Saturday afternoon, you're at the cocaine dealership, you're watching the game. What are you looking for, man? What's standing out to you Saturday? What's a position battle? What's the thing that's going to stand out to you?
He's watching the women to make sure they keep their bras off so they can't smuggle out product. Anyone that's ever played Grand Theft Auto knows how it works.
I thought what's the movie with Wesley Snipes in it?
New Jack City.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of, man. Great movie, by the way.
Actually, I won't be really watching the game for anything in particular. I'd rather like to see us get out healthy.
Yeah.
But I would be interested to see how long certain people play. Because the longer they play, you can almost make a bet that they're not getting on the team, and the Chiefs are letting them put film out there so they can get somewhere else. So that'll be mostly what I'm watching, because I think the cut is what, Monday?
Yeah.
So.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's the one thing that is there any players in particular? Like, I think Deneric Prince might not play at all because I think what the Chiefs want to do is cut him and keep him. Mm-hmm. We may see CEH play quite a bit. We may see P. Ryan play quite a bit.
I think the line is going to be interesting. O-line.
Yeah.
O-line and D-line, I think, is where most of the attention should be focused, because based on who's playing and who's out, you'll be able to be like, oh, that guy's probably going to make the team. Or that, and then you can start really kind of deciphering how many they're going to keep. You know what I'm saying? I mean, the last preseason game kind of gets you a little bit more insight on what they're thinking. And, yeah, we'll see if Ross gets in and gets out, him and Rice, and if they let all the other ones play.
Yeah, I'm kind of interested in how much you want to see Rice play or not play. I mean, if he plays quite a bit, it may be an indicator that they don't want him to play a lot week one. But if he just gets in and gets out, he may be very important in the plans versus Detroit. Same thing with Ross.
The problem with that is, and Keys is quick to point this out. So this is the one thing that I've ever stolen from Keys. Is that Andy's playbook is notoriously difficult. So you really
it's the most complex offense in the NFL. It's not a homer statement.
Really and Andy has even said, like, Rice got all those calls last week because they need him to get comfortable. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think he's juju. That's what I think. And now, since he doesn't have the turf toe, he's actually getting the separation and stuff that you didn't get to see in college last year because he was playing injured, which is a good sign too. Like, I went back and kind of looked at some stuff, and I was like, he's got hands, but he really doesn't have any separation.
Hey, Gooch, okay. Yeah, I was going to say your microphone's off or something. We didn't get the last couple sentences.
Oh, I was just saying that when you watch him in college, he wasn't getting the separation, and you see him now, and you kind of figure out that turf toe he had was worse than maybe he was letting on, because he seems to be a lot faster and a lot cleaner in and out of his routes and stuff. But if he's in there a long time, I wouldn't be surprised, because if he comes, like, I really think they're going to kind of rotate him in a lot more regularly than people think. And they want to make sure that he's got the playbook down.
That's interesting.
Right, yeah.
I'm almost hoping he doesn't play very much, because I kind of want to see, because I think he definitely makes the team, but I want to see some of these other receivers, guys like, Powell and Smith-Marsette, guys are fighting for that number 7 spot. But I kind of agree with Keys that Smith-Marsette would probably be 8, Powell would be 9.
I'm not even sure Powell would be 9, but I mean, I might put Remigio in there at 9 and put Powell at 10. But yeah, I think you both bring up an interesting point. But the one thing I'll say for Gooch is if Andy is being honest and there is a legit backup battle, then you almost have to play Rice a bit more to give each guy a fair shake, because who are you going to bring in for the receivers? You're going to give one, the C team and the other one the B team, and it's stacked against them. Like, I think you almost have to, but what Gooch said makes sense. You want him to have that comfort. You want him, if he's going to make mistakes in the playbook, you want it to happen now. And so, whether most of these guys, but here's my question, and I guess I just took over as host throughout the night here. But if we say that, because I think we would all, mostly agree with that assessment that Rashee Rice is kind of like Juju. And we've heard now that Justin Rice is like Sammy Watkins. If they come anywhere near that, right? And I don't know if anyone's given a Sky Moore comp that I've heard of, and I've been like, yeah, that makes sense. But if you take those three players and they're anywhere, those two are anywhere near their comps, and Sky Moore, who admitted, last year he was just trying not to screw up his routes, which he did. He had his screw ups, and this year he feels so much comfortable. If you take those three, and I'm way ahead to next year now. What does that wide receiver room look like with those three? If you have someone who does end up kind of looking like Sammy Watkins, and you do have someone who's like Juju, you add him with Travis, and you have someone with like Sky Moore, who we expect to have an even bigger year this year, whether you keep or get rid of MVS. Sorry.
Well, I think you answered your question, is that MVS will be gone. I think this might be his last year in Kansas City. And then, I mean, I honestly, I don't expect Rice to play much, but that's something I'm really paying attention to. Does Rice play a lot? How much does Justin Ross play? Because if he doesn't play much, I think that's a good sign that not only is he going to make the team, but they expect him to do a lot against Detroit week 1. Because I do think we're going to see Smith-Marset play a lot. I think we're going to see Powell play a lot. I'm kind of curious.
Juwan, the guy we brought in from the Seattle, is it the Sea Dragons or whatever, from the XFL?
I actually forgot about him. The guy I wanted to see got hurt. The kid out, and I'm complete blank on his name. The undrafted rookie free agent out of Fresno State, who had a great first preseason game, and then he got hurt, and I don't know if he's out for the year or not. I'm drawing a blank on his name. He's the guy I think that was also a guy that would be fighting for a roster spot, and I think he would be fighting for number 7 because he's a special teams guy as well. With the running back situation, I was kind of surprised we saw McKinnon play in preseason. That's something I don't remember if he played at all last year in preseason. But the running back situation is going to be interesting. P. Ryan versus Prince. I'm almost thinking that we're not going to see Prince because the Chiefs don't want to. Yeah, and I think Bushman's fighting for that spot. I'm expecting to see a lot of Matt Bushman, who's looked pretty damn good. But when I'm looking, I really don't see. I'll be honest. When the Chiefs are on defense, I'm just kind of going to be paying attention to the scheme. I'm not really going to be paying attention to the players. But when the Chiefs are on offense, I'm looking at wide receiver, running back, tight end. I think those are going to be very interesting battles because Blake Bell, if he's a guy who gets cut, he's 100% going to be on another team. He's going to make another NFL roster. So hopefully Gooch is not in jail. So that's
I'm not going to say it out loud, but no, I didn't even realize he was gone. I was listening to you talk there, Dan, but yeah, I don't know. Cause when we cut Bell, he gets to choose if he signs with another team, right? Cause at this point I'm with Gooch. I think they bring him back to the practice squad if they cut him. And, he's left before. He spent a year with the Cowboys, but he came back. And so, I'm with Gooch on that. I think Bell gets cut, and I think they bring him back to the practice squad. But, that's more kind of what I want than necessarily how Andy will operate.
Yeah, I think he'd probably sign with another team. just because he's got some experience, and that's something we're going to find out. I mean, we could see Blake Bell have, play 2 quarters and have 5 or 6 receptions and look like he's a solid number 2 guy. Which on the Chiefs he would be number 3, but I think the Chiefs number 3 tight end spot's a key battle. 7, 8, 9, 10 wide receiver spot. And I'm kind of curious who's going to play and who's not going to play at the running back position. It may be interesting because we may see CEH out there a lot. And are they offering to trade him? Is he a trade candidate?
I don't think you can trade CEH for much more than somebody else's like failed, first or second round pick. So if you can name some of those guys out there that might fit that bill, because I mean, the reality is, and I've been saying for months, I thought you could throw him in as a filler in a trade, but he can't be the trade himself. And we've only seen that more so with the devaluing of the running back position. So I think it's lottery ticket for lottery ticket.
I think he could be like a 5th, 6th round pick. You mentioned Rashad Fenton. He was a 7th round pick. I think it was like 7th and a conditional 6 or some stuff like that.
Yeah, but CEH's cap hit is like 3.3 million this year.
It's a big number.
And yeah, I mean, again, with the way the running back market is, I just think that the position's been devalued and it's not even the most cost control, after the Chiefs pay whatever they would have to owe them, and I'm fairly good at cap, but not knowing exactly how it works with trades. So I don't know. Maybe that would make it doable.
I mean, don't get me wrong. If it was a trade, the other team would have to eat quite a bit. And the only way a team does this is there has to be an injury. I mean, we've seen it before. Remember a couple of years ago with Seattle, they brought Marshawn Lynch out of retirement because they had like 4 or 5 running backs go down. I could see a situation like that. There's 2 other things I want to touch base on before we get out of here. Before preseason, there was talk about Jonathan Taylor and the owner saying, hey, look, he's not going to go anywhere. He's going to stay here in Indianapolis. Now he's backtracking and saying, hey, look, we're entertaining trades. Let me ask you this here. Is he a player who is going to get traded? What could you get out of him? Because we were talking about running backs. And CEH is a guy that I think is a backup on the Chiefs, just part of rotation. Jonathan Taylor is a superstar, but he was injured last year because of the devaluation of running backs. Is there a market for him? I heard Miami offered. It's an unknown what they offered, but Indianapolis turned it down. Is Jonathan Taylor going to go anywhere, and where would you expect him to go?
Yeah, I think what I heard on Twitter or X is Miami and the Bills had both offered a package around a 2nd round for each of those teams. Miami seems to be really aggressively wanting another running back. So
I don't get that at all. They drafted a guy in the 3rd round, a guy that I love, and they got a couple of running backs already. I don't get it.
I'm here for it if it eats into Tyreek's snaps and we start to see some fun, like some fireworks go on there. But I mean, we'll see, because they seem to be the team, and maybe part of that is they do want to keep him away from Buffalo, a divisional rival there. Maybe the plan is, hey, we're just going to pass until the weather gets cold, and when we got to go to a place like Buffalo or New England, we're going to give Jonathan Taylor the ball 30 times and then do all of our other little stuff there. But I don't know. I'm leaning towards Miami right now just because of all the smoke.
So you actually do think he's going to end up with the Dolphins?
I think so.
It's funny because Jonathan Taylor is a Big Ten sprinting champion, and he would be like the 7th fastest player He's the fastest player on the Colts right now, and he goes to Miami, he'd be like the 7th fastest. So that story is something that's really interesting because I think the two teams that stand out to me, and one of them doesn't make any sense at all, but the team that stands out to me is Arizona. You have all those draft picks, and then you got, who knows what's going on with Kyler Murray, and they need offensive weapons. So, I mean, if I'm Arizona, that just makes a lot of sense. The other team, and this is where you're going to think I'm nuts, because it's a player-for-player trade. A player in a draft pick would be the Chargers, and you would trade Austin Eckler to the Colts, and then Jonathan Taylor goes to the Chargers. And the Colts would have to, or I'm sorry, the Chargers would have to add a draft pick because it looks like they're going to move on from Austin Eckler, which is one of the dumbest things ever, but it looks like that situation's not really going to work out. It doesn't look like Taylor's going to work out with the Colts. To me, it makes a lot of sense. And Taylor would fit in with the Indianapolis offense, where I think they've been missing. Keep in mind, we got a new offensive coordinator, and Kellen Moore's, I think, already been adamant that he's going to use Eckler more as a receiver. But that just, like, for me as a Chiefs fan, I just keep laughing. Like, you got this awesome slot receiver, and you want to run him between the tackles. You take Jonathan Taylor, run him between the tackles, you protect your quarterback, you protect your receivers. There's so many things that you could do. But as somebody who's a big Jonathan Taylor fan, I'd hate to see him go to the Chargers. But that scenario just makes a lot of sense for both teams because you also give Anthony Richardson a nice receiving option, at a security blanket. And that's what you need when you're a young quarterback. So those are the two teams that just keep – for some reason or another, a Jonathan Taylor for Austin Eckler trade just, to me, just makes a lot of sense, but I might be crazy.
Well, I mean, that could be a reason why you bring Jonathan Taylor into the Dolphins to protect Tua from more concussions. But yeah, I mean, I guess the part that wouldn't make sense to me is you have disgruntled running back who wants to be paid, and you're going to swap him for another disgruntled running back who wants to be paid. Like, you're still stuck with a headache. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, the reason why you do it is you get rid of the disgruntled, but you bring in a player who's got to play for like I said, it sounds kind of crazy, but you get rid of the headache, but you make the trade just because if it doesn't work out, then because bottom line, Austin Eckler is not going to resign with the Chargers, and I don't think Jonathan Taylor is going to play with the Colts.
Yeah, you're talking about a situation where Orlando Brown Jr. wouldn't take $15 or $16 million from the Chiefs because he wanted to be Trent Williams, and then he goes and ends up having to beg the Bengals to pay him $15 or $16 million to play for them, and he's willing to do it. Type of deal is kind of what you're talking about here.
Something like that. and I think Jonathan Taylor is going to be really disappointed that he's not going to get the money that he may or may not deserve. It's just bottom line when you have look, when you run for over 1,800 yards, I've seen it before. I'll throw out a name that you may or may not remember. Remember Sean Alexander led the NFL in rushing, NFL MVP. Right after that, like 2 or 3 years later, he's out of the league. And I've seen this happen a lot over the years. You have this monster season, and it goes fast for running backs. And it's a damn shame because, I mean, if he can stay healthy, he's so much fun to watch. I loved him at Wisconsin. I love watching. I love watching great running backs, and he's as good as it gets if he's healthy. I mean,
that kind of brings up the part of the point of the devaluing of the running back position. Like Derrick Henry, has been the best running back for how many years, and how many playoff games have the Titans won, with him? Which brings us back to Nick Bolton, who stole Derrick Henry's manhood, but that's neither here nor there. So if you can't win playoff games, make deep playoff runs with someone like Derrick Henry, what are you going to do? How can you expect to get the money? And I think the thing that's even hurt more so is, the way teams started to play Mahomes, and that's trickled down to every other quarterback. So then for a lot of teams, and I think that's why one of the reasons you see Tom Brady having to retire is the way that the defenses are playing almost dictates that your running game not come from a running back, it comes from your quarterback, and you put all that passing and running pressure on the quarterback.
Yeah, it's kind of a shame, and I feel bad. It's running back used to be such an important position, and it's just becoming less and less and less important. But it'll just be kind of interesting to see what happens. It's a story that I'm really kind of personally invested into, even though the Colts aren't a divisional team, and I think that because they're starting Anthony Richardson as a rookie, they're not going to be a team to. Yeah, I think the Colts are going to not be a very good team next year. One final question before I get rid of you.
That kid has some moxie.
I love the kid. I think it's a big mistake to start him day one.
Hey, Gooch, Dan said that you don't have to disconnect to do your deals. You can stay on to do them.
Actually, believe it or not, power's out in half the city, so everything's wonky.
Oh, wow.
Like there's legit no power. That's why it's been funky.
By the way, that's code for the deal came in. So.
No, we usually just say the eagle has landed. And during football season, we talk quarterbacks. You know what I'm saying? Just numbers.
So that's what's going on when somebody says Burrow's better than Mahomes. That's really just code for hey, I got it, I got some. So that's good to know.
Well, that's definitely a drug test to let you know they're smoking crack.
Exactly. Like, hey, I'm looking. That's the code. Is that I want to score some drugs. Oh yeah, Burrow is better than Mahomes. Oh yeah, So, what I want to ask you guys one other question because Arizona's been trading away players. They're stockpiling draft picks. I don't believe it personally, but I want to know from you guys: are they tanking? Is this a tank job? I mean, you got off season. You get rid of DeAndre Hopkins, Josh Jones, former first round pick. He was going to be a swing tackle. Hasn't panned out. They got rid of him. Isaiah Simmons, former top 10 pick, another guy they've been kind of messing around with. They got all these extra draft picks. I'm just asking. Is this Corey's not here anymore? Corey, I can tell you for a fact, Corey doesn't believe that. But somebody who's a huge Jonathan Gannon fan like yourself, let me ask you this: is Arizona tanking?
I think we'll know that by what happens with Kyler, because if anyone is going to help there be a good tanking in Arizona, as much as Kyler plays Call of Duty, it'll be him.
Well,
there was another joke that didn't land. I think that there is a way to. I don't think they're tanking, but I think that you can put yourself in a position where you have the flexibility to, if that makes sense. Like, you can cut payroll, you can cut you can get rid of guys that are not going to be a fit, whether that's a locker room fit or a schematic fit. Sometimes we get caught up in like the player's ability that we kind of miss that locker room aspect to it, their coachability, all that part of it. And so I think what you're seeing is Gannon trying to put his stamp, like mentality, attitude, that type of stuff, along with the schematic things as well, right? Guys who can't do what he wants them to do. They're just moving on. They're shedding payroll. They're rolling everything to the future, but they're still going to try to compete. Yet if they can't compete, well, then, either way, they win type of deal. That's how I see it, in my opinion. So I don't think that they're intentionally tanking, but I think that if what they do leads to them having the first overall pick, they're not going to be mad either.
No, I mean, it's going to be. I'm don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm jacked up for football season, but it's going to be a great draft, and it's going to
just don't hire Lovie Smith.
Yeah. Well, I do firmly believe that Gannon could be one of these one and done coaches. It's happened in Arizona before.
He should. Yeah, set the team up for Lou Anarumo.
Yeah, I mean, that would have been a much better fit, in my opinion. You're going to hear the Lincoln Riley rumors, but I don't think he's jumping ship. And I mean, to be honest with you, though, it kind of makes sense. If you're Lincoln Riley, you can bring Caleb Williams with you to Arizona with a boatload of draft picks and have some fun. But you're going to hear it quite a bit.
But you can make more money as a college coach. You have an easier job having longevity. I mean, look at, and I don't want to trash him, but look at Kirk Ferentz in Iowa. He's been there like 2.5 decades, and he's got the nepotism with his son as offensive coordinator who, that's neither here nor there. But then you add in the is it NIL money? You can basically buy players. You can bring players to your program, and USC going to the Big Ten is going to help with that. If you haven't been paying attention, USC's got a phenomenal recruiting class coming in. Apparently, they landed like the number 2 quarterback. His backup could probably start for like 75 to 80 schools as a freshman. Like I don't know the guy's name, but yeah. But with that money, I mean, the NFL, you have a salary cap. With this in college now, you can buy players and bring them to your roster. So I think between those 3 or 4 things, it's a lot easier to have the longevity if you're at USC and you get their support. You get the guys with the money and you get them to support you compared to an NFL fan base and a rich owner who is either too meddlesome or wants results ASAP. I think, every person's got different priorities, but it almost makes the most sense for most guys to just stay with that college gig, especially if you get one at a place like USC.
Yeah, I kind of agree. Even though we're going to hear Lincoln Riley to the NFL quite a bit, I don't think it's going to happen. If you can get a gig like USC, I mean, by the way, Oklahoma's not a bad job either. Oklahoma was not a bad job. And he just said, hey, look, I'm leaving. I'll take the USC job because the
weather is a lot different and there's beaches and stuff, though. So,
I mean, I mean, when you talk about college programs, I mean, there's not too many better than USC. I can't think of a college program off the top of my head I'd rather have than USC. I said there's not. But hey, let me ask. Actually, you know what? This is not unscripted question here. How long is Saban going to stay at Alabama? Let's say he leaves after a couple of years. If you're Lincoln Riley, do you want to jump to the SEC and take over at Alabama?
Well, Saban's revered, and I don't think he's going. If I'm him, I'm not leaving until I get 10. You know what I'm saying? Like, I get 10 college championships. I'm the GOAT. It's undisputed. There is no, well, I'm in the discussion. I'm him, and I'm out.
For me, I think he's already there. I think whenever he walks away it's the best, unless Kirby Smart wins another 2 national unless he wins 2 more consecutive national championships, then we have to start talking about him. But I think Saban's already he's the best.
In my eyes, he is. Also, Arizona's going to tank because that coach gave up 38 to the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, and on that same field gave up 38 to the Chiefs again. It's almost like he didn't learn his lesson.
You know what? I have a short list of coaches I think that will be gone after the year, and Gannon's on my short list.
He should have never been hired.
No, I agree. The one thing, so Corey left a while back, but he's been sending me things. He's actually pretty excited about Gannon, and he's been sending me some clips about some of the things that they're doing and some of his interactions with players. And I was kind of buying into that. Then I watched them play the Chiefs, and Simmons in particular looked bored out there. So, you know. So, but I think he's a guy that's on my. There's a handful of NFL coaches that are on the hot seat, and even though he's only on year one, he's one of those guys. It would not surprise me if he's gone. Ravens 76B Moore says Orlando Brown, the Chiefs will survive without him. He can be a liability in pass protection. The Bengals will find out. Yeah. The Bengals are going to find out. I mean, that's an interesting situation because I have no idea how long Burrow is going to be out. I'm hearing anywhere from 2 to 6 weeks, and they have some big games coming up early. So yeah, the Chiefs early on look like they're in really good shape. If you've been watching the Chiefs preseason, Donovan Smith and Juwan, I keep saying Juwan Short, but it's Juwan Taylor. Look really, really good. Juwan Taylor early on looks like he'll go to a Pro Bowl at right tackle. I mean, he looks really good.
I'm not going to say I tried to tell people, but I tried to tell people, because no matter both guys, right? Juwan Taylor, all right, he's not the best run blocker in the world, but athletically, I mean, he's so much better than Wiley, right? Wiley was Chiefs fans know this, but Wiley was a backup right guard for Kansas City for a few years. And the only reason he got looks at right tackle is it was not only the Mitch Schwartz injury, but it was the Eric Fisher injury that led them to take backup Mike Rimmers, the right tackle, move him to left tackle, and then move Wiley, who is the backup right guard, to right tackle. And so when Schwartz's career was done, that's how Wiley's playing right tackle. But you have a lot of Andy Reid scheming to protect him in his deficiencies. Same thing with Orlando. Orlando's main thing is the fact that he has super long arms, and usually the offensive or defensive lineman who gets their hands on the other player first is usually going to win that rep. So that's what he had against what he's always had for him. But his feet are so freaking slow, Dan. Every time I watched him, it just made me want to throw up. And that's the big reason. I understand he's got good reach. But the other thing is watch his back when he plays. Like, it's painful to watch him, like the way he kind of slumps over and the way he has to move his feet just to block guys. And so, one of the reasons I was excited about Donovan Smith, and I understand why people were low on him, but I looked at all the things, like, to me, you have a guy, and we talked about this before because we talked about it last year, right before the season began when Ryan Jensen got injured. And, we talked about, I think this is going to be a big thing for Tom Brady to have Ryan Jensen injured. And we talked about the left guard who retired before the season began. So Donovan Smith didn't have his left guard next to him that he'd been playing with. Ryan Jensen's gone. All of a sudden, your left guard, your center are gone. They lose their backup center for a couple weeks, right?
Yeah.
They had no running game, and you got a 45-year-old quarterback who's a statue. And, and then we find out that Donovan Smith is playing through an injury. You put all of those things together, and it's going to make basically any left tackle look bad, in my opinion.
You also have to throw in, you got Todd Bowles, who's a defensive-minded coach.
Right.
I think, if you had
Arians.
you had Arians, it would have been a lot better. But I was not expecting him to play as well. And the one thing is that Orlando Brown tweeted out that the offense in Cincinnati is a better fit for him, and Chiefs fans.
And I agree.
That about it. But no, yeah, it is. And I think Cincinnati's going to try to be more of a run. If you're a heavy run team like Baltimore was when Orlando Brown was there, he's as good as it gets. But when you're a heavy pass team, he can be a liability, and it'll be interesting because I think that when Burrow's gone and if they lean on the running game, he'll be just fine. But when Burrow gets back in that offense and he wants to throw the ball, 50, 60 times a game, you'll see some issues. And that AFC North is going to be a lot of fun. If you missed my preview videos, one of the things Ravens be more noted is that I did predict the Ravens are going to win the AFC North. So that is just
well, last year I really thought that was going to happen, and I've talked about it before how Lamar and Mark Andrews screwed me in fantasy, but it's always the funny thing because when you talk to Chiefs fans and you talk to Ravens fans, they're pretty much in agreement on Orlando Brown Jr. and Bengals fans are. I don't know if they're desperate or, delusional. Like I came upon a whole Reddit thread, that really thought that Chiefs fans were trashing Orlando Brown because he signed with the Bengals. And it's like, talk to Ravens fans. And I get it. They're in the same division and the Chiefs are your rivals. But, the thing is Ravens fans told Chiefs fans when we got him in the trade, and Chiefs fans were saying the exact same thing that the Bengals fans are saying now. And it's like, at some point is the fourth team he goes to, are those fans going to finally get it? But yeah, I do think the Bengals will be a better fit. And I think I tweeted all the way back in October that whatever team he went to, for the most part was going to be a better fit because he was going to be, the offense is just going to be different. Andy Reid asks a lot, but he also helps out a lot. But other offenses don't have a Patrick Mahomes, so they're not going to be as geared towards the pass. So, of course, he's going to look better. Doesn't mean he's actually a better player.
Well, I mean, yeah, and you have to understand, Baltimore, keep in mind, Baltimore has the new offensive coordinator, so things are going to look a little different in Baltimore. But, Baltimore was probably the most run-centered team. And then you go to Kansas City, which is, if not the most pass-centered team, top three maybe. Orlando Brown was kind of like a square peg in a round hole. I always believed, for whatever reason, that the Chiefs are going to run the ball more. I don't know why I do this, but it's just the old school guy in me. But Cincinnati's they're more of a running team than Kansas City. They're more of a passing team than Baltimore. So, I wish him nothing but success. And of course, against I think it's New Year's Eve. Is it New Year's Eve or New Year's Day that we play Cincinnati? I don't have the schedule memorized yet, but it's late in the season. Hopefully the Chiefs have home field wrapped up and we can just rest players, but that's kind of it. Since we lost Gooch to a deal, any final thoughts before I let you go, Keys?
No, it's going to be crazy because we're doing what? 37 players on each team are going to be cut.
Yeah, it's
after this weekend. So
this is always like it's gut wrenching, and there's going to be a couple players that I'm adamant there's going to be, at least on the Chiefs anyway, there's going to be at least 7 to 10 players that are going to be cut that are going to make other teams, and they're going to play. They're going to play on Sundays. I'm not saying they're going to be starters, but there's going to be a lot of Chiefs players that are going to be cut that are going to play, and it's give credit to Brett Veach for bringing in some players. I'm looking at this receivers in particular. Several of these guys are going to make rosters and be maybe number 3s on some teams, but you're going to see a lot of guys going to be number 4, number 5 receiver, play a lot of special teams, and that's another thing too. But it's something I'm looking forward to Saturday. Same deal. If you didn't watch the show last weekend, I should have did it before I went on the air, but I'm going to delete all my social media, so I have no idea what goes on. I have to work Saturday. I don't want the game ruined. Hopefully, nobody will tell me about it. So I'm going to delete all my social media pretty much just right after the show. Now, the Back Talk Brothers Twitter feed is in the link below. If you don't follow them on social media, you need to. All my social media links are available. If you do want to get a hold of me on social media, do it in the next, I'm going to say, hour or two, because I'm going to delete them off my phone, and I probably won't put it back on until Monday, maybe Tuesday. So I'll be out of social media contact if you try to reach out to me. Like I said, I'll probably wait about an hour or two and delete everything.
You got to watch the game so you can expect the cuts coming.
Oh, I'm gonna. So I have to work Saturday, so I have the game on DVR. Ideally, I plan to watch it Saturday night when I get off. There's a chance I may have to watch it Sunday night or maybe even Monday, but that's highly unlikely. It's very rare, even for a preseason game, unless there's something like really crazy going on. Like I could be dead tired and still like can't sleep unless I watch the Chiefs game. So more than likely, I get off work Saturday. I'll probably fast forward through a little of when the Browns are on offense, because there's not really much. I really don't think there's too many. I'm looking at the Chiefs roster. I really don't think there's any roster spots I see. But on the offensive side of the ball, Blake Bell, Bushman, I think that's a battle. Running back and receiver, I'm really interested to see who's going to play. Some questions on the offensive line. Lucas Nang, is he going to make the team? My boy Darian Kennard, who's just been playing lights out, he may not make the team. Wanda Morris is going to make the team. I mean, let's be honest. I think Ritter's going to make the team, but
yeah, we disagree on that one. I think Allegretti is going to be able to play backup center serviceably enough that he makes sense as your backup guard and your backup center.
Well, that's another thing, is how many offensive linemen did the Chiefs keep? They if I remember right, they kept, 9 or 10 last year. The Chiefs keep a lot of offensive linemen, but somebody has to, somebody's going to move on. And I think you guys are right. I think there's only going to be 3 tight ends on the roster this year. I think somebody's not going to make the team. As far as running backs are concerned, I think P. Ryan's going to make the team. And I think we're going to keep 4 running backs. And I think Prince is going to be a guy that it'll be very interesting to see. I think we keep 3 quarterbacks. And Olakun, hopefully I'm not butchering that. This is a guy I absolutely love. I want him to stay on the Chiefs big time. But Bichelle, I don't see how you cut him for Olakun. So
yeah, I mean, I think it's Olakundo. I need to learn it because I like being the guy who gives you guys the names.
Yeah,
being the name dealer.
I love this guy. This was one of my. So he was a 7th round pick to Pittsburgh. I loved it because they had a 1st round pick, and I thought you get a 7th round pick and you could possibly grow them together. But you wanted to remember they had Trubisky, so they didn't want to have 2 rookie quarterbacks, and that makes sense. And that makes a lot of sense. But he was a guy that I really liked coming out of college. He's a guy I think that could be he's a guy in the Chiefs offense could be a lot of fun, but I can't see the Chiefs keeping 4 quarterbacks. I don't see it.
No, yeah, there's no way. 3, I think, is probably if we're lucky, and if he makes it and he goes to the practice squad. I mean, there's going to be, rough math, almost 1,200 players cut this weekend. 1,200. So, I mean, that's a lot of eyes for GMs to be, looking at names and scouting. And I mean, teams are going to sneak some guys through. That's just a lot of people at once. Almost 1,200 players.
I mean, there could be a possibility that the Chiefs are looking for somebody that they want to sign. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I think Mahomes and Gabbard are locks. I'm pretty sure Bichelle's a lock, but you never know. There could be, Hey, we talked about it. There could be a defensive tackle that gets cut that the Chiefs are saying, hey, look, we can bring him in. There could be an edge rusher that we want to sign, for 6 weeks until Amanahu is off suspension. You never know. And seriously, there's going to be a lot of cuts made by the Chiefs on players that can play on other teams. One final thing, I just want to circle back to the whole point of the show is that Chris Jones, if he gets traded mid-season, you still think the Chiefs can win the Super Bowl?
Well, you can, if he gets traded, you can ask me then because I'll know what the Chiefs' record is by then.
Okay.
But if we're assuming that the Chiefs have a winning record by then, I still think so, and especially more so at that point. Because kind of again, it's just hard because if they thought they did, they would probably hold on to him unless the offer they got was good enough to make it worth it. But again, if he held out the first 7 weeks, everyone assumes if he holds out the first 7 weeks, the defense is going to be so hurt that they're basically begging him to come back. But what if Joe Cullen is really good at his job? And what if those coaches get players coached up? And what if Joe Cullen knows how to do things schematically to where you don't need Chris Jones? Because, again, my thinking is that one of the reasons a deal hasn't been done is because they maybe haven't necessarily been intending to have Chris Jones on this team in 2024 or 2025. The defense isn't built around him, despite what everyone thinks, but he's a star player regardless. But at the end of the day, you can't pay someone $30 million a year just for him to get double teamed every snap, because apart from Joe Cullen schematically making sure that doesn't happen with different alignments and making teams pay, right? It takes Joe Cullen and it takes the rest of his defensive line teammates cashing in on his double teams to ensure that he can't get double teamed every time. And that's kind of my big thing. You pay a guy $30 million and the offensive coordinator can just say, okay, we're going to double him every play and we're going to take away $30 million from their salary cap every snap of the ball, right? It was kind of like the whole Tyreek thing to me. If teams are going to play deep and take away that deep shot with Tyreek, and force you to do that underneath stuff, he's doing okay with the Dolphins, but he didn't have the hands with Kansas City to catch the heat from Pat on all that underneath stuff. That's where the interceptions were coming. You know that, Dan. Crossers.
I knew that losing Tyreek wouldn't prevent the Chiefs from winning a Super Bowl, but I'm going to stay adamant. I think that he is going to play, and I think he's necessary, but I also think in 2024 he's going to be gone. I just, before I said I was going to let you go, but I do want to bring this up here. Let's bring up the schedule because normally I have it memorized. I don't have it memorized right now. Week 8. By the way, the NFL trade debt. Let me see if I can get this right. The NFL trade deadline is Halloween, so it's after week 8. The 2 games I really think early on that we need Chris Jones for are at Jacksonville and at New York. The rest of these games, I would be shocked if there's any. By the way, Lions fans can get mad. Detroit here, this is going to be a win. Okay, I'm letting you know right now. I think all these games, Minnesota's a possibility, but I think all these games are wins. The only 2 games this is my number one fear right here, Jacksonville. Then I think the Jets. But this Jacksonville game, I'm like, man, God, please, Chris Jones, come back for Jacksonville.
See, I don't know if I agree that. I would almost put Detroit ahead of them because look at Detroit's offensive tackles.
Yeah.
You're not really going to get much from your edge. And I think Jacksonville, you lost Jawan Taylor, at right tackle. So they're replacing him thinking through that offensive line, unless I'm completely forgetting a stud they have, Jacksonville's bread and butter, other than Etienne, who I really wanted and didn't come out the year they drafted CEH. He stayed in school that year. But, Doug Peterson does mesh really well. And he does all these, and Andy knows what he does. So to me, that game is going to be more about the linebackers and the secondary tackling, the linebackers in coverage and the secondary tackling. So I almost want to say that's a Drew Tranquil game.
Well, it's going to be interesting because I just released before I went on, I released my previews at 6 p.m. So I just released Jacksonville, and they got all sorts of weapons on offense. They finally unlocked Evan Ingram. They got Calvin Ridley. They got Christian Kirk. Zay Jones had career highs in receptions and yards last year. Cam Robinson is their starting left tackle. He's on a 6-game gambling. I think it's a gambling suspension. So they used their first-round draft pick on a tackle, and it looks like he's going to be the starting left tackle. They had a second-round pick, Walker Little, who played left tackle against the Chiefs in the playoffs, played really well. The last preseason game, now keep in mind, both Jacksonville and Detroit just played backups. So I didn't watch it. I thought that they would play a lot of starters. They just went backups. He played at guard, so I think they're going to use him up and down the offensive line. But you are right though. I mean, both their tackles are going to be different guys than last year.
I mean, we're in agreement that passing offense is going to be great.
Yeah,
I think we're both in agreement in that. And Doug, Doug is right there. He's not Andy, but Doug is a pretty good offensive mind. And again, he does, and you have Trevor. So that's kind of my thing is what are you really going to lose not having Chris? Because, Trevor has his capability. To me, it's going to be more on the second and third level guys than it is the defensive line. And I can be completely wrong.
Thing I will tell you is that now I don't know where it is where you're at, but it's the muggiest, nastiest summer I can remember. It's just been nasty this year. Jacksonville in September is very, very unpleasant. If you don't live down there, you can't be used to it. It's going to be their season opener. I think they open. It's either I think it's Indianapolis. So they go to Indianapolis. I'd be shocked if they lost that game, but you never know in the NFL.
They could be overlooking them because they want this rematch. They're a little sore.
The thing is with I love Anthony Richardson. As a rookie, I really thought that he should sit for a year, just like that number 15 with Kansas City did. That's what I would have done. But
anyway. Doug's a great coach. He knows how to have him ready by week 1.
Yeah. So I really do. I think Jacksonville on this schedule, Jacksonville really scares me. New York really scares me. And then I'll be honest with you, after that, I'm not scared of anybody. I know that Burrow may or may not be back. I know Buffalo has beaten Kansas City in the regular season. I'm not scared of that. But these two games right here early on, and I really want Chris Jones to be back for especially Jacksonville. I'll be honest with you, Lions fans, you can quote me on this. I'm not scared. Arrowhead, week 1, I'm not worried. I think we can win that game without Chris Jones. I don't think we can win a Super Bowl without Chris Jones, and I'm going to stand by that. But hopefully, he will come back. He'll play. And my final thought is I don't think he's going to be back in Kansas City in 2024. I think he'll be playing for another team. So,
yep. All right. That's kind of where I'm at too. But, I do think that by the end of the season, you're going to see guys stepped up. You'll have a Minihue back. If I see the jump from George Karlaftis that I'm expecting, whether it's FAU, Mike Dana, all these different guys out there. And we still have Leo Chanel, season number 2 here. He's got great speed. You got BJ Thompson. They went kind of an interesting direction with their edge rushers, and you take them and you take Chanel, and you start having fun with some blitzes, and all of a sudden, like I said, the Giants didn't have a Chris Jones caliber when Spags was there. And I've pointed out other times, look at what Flores was able to do in Miami with what he had, on his defensive line. So there's ways to do it. So
I just think the AFC is just so tough this year, and it'll be a lot of fun. But hopefully, our conversation is purely hypothetical. I do think Chris Jones will play against Detroit Week 1. That's my prediction. I think he's going to stay with Kansas City for 2023, and hopefully we win another Super Bowl and the dynasty continues. If you're a Chiefs fan, enjoy it, because this is the greatest time in Chiefs history to be a fan. And you can go back Texans history, doesn't matter, since 1960. This is the time. And in 12 days and a wake up, we get to see the dynasty continue, and what I think will be a very good Week 1 game. Just a reminder, I will be live when the Chiefs play the Lions. I will be doing live play-by-play. So mute the TV, turn me on, and listen to me do play-by-play commentary, as I will get at least 3 names wrong. But, no, I do a good job. And
I thought only the Berthas could turn you on.
I will be doing play-by-play, and just like on the channel, I'll answer all questions. And during commercial breaks, I will also be I'll be logged into DraftKings. And if you have a recommendation, that's just the DraftKings website just has been the easiest. But if you want me to log on to a different one, I can give you a gambling advice during the game. A lot of guys are going to do some in-game betting. Some guys may have prop bets, or you may have some fantasy football questions. I know last year when I was doing the game, Slasher hit me up about doing some fantasy, or he hit me up for prop bets, and somebody else hit me up. I'm drawing a blank on who it was, about some fantasy football. So that's all I have. Guys, have a great weekend, and I'll be back next Friday.